Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural Central Sierra Economic Development Summit and Forum. The goal today, I know all of you are working on economic development within your areas. The goal here today is to collaborate across counties and compare notes with other people just like you from other counties, and also to try to come up with maybe some regional solutions that we can implement locally that will help us. So we're looking at this locally, of course, but also maybe as a regional a resource that we can put towards this. So the point here is that when we do economic development in this area, I travel across this area through my role as a workforce development director, and even though each county is different, we're all very similar up here in the Central Valley. We have the same industries, the same challenges. We're not like the Central Valley. We're not like the Bay Area. We're not a suburb of Sacramento, and so to try to lump us in with them is inappropriate. So for us to all be birds of a feather here from these rural counties in the Central Sierra, hopefully we can establish some contacts and some networks. We had you all distributed, hopefully at each table with multiple county representatives, so you can meet some people from other counties as well as not clumping with your normal county folks all the time. So welcome, and we are also want to thank our sponsors today, CalEd and the TCEDA, the Tuolumne County Economic Development Authority. Thank you, Larry Cope, and thank you, Gerbax, from CalEd, and also Rich Gordon and the CalForest, California Forestry Association. So thank you all very much for sponsoring us. I also want to say thank you to the organizers of the event that have been working several weeks and months to kind of put this together, and primarily Laura Cole-Rowe and Kelly Smith and Randy Starbuck have been working diligently on this. If you're in the room, please stand up. I think the others are still greeting the latecomers. So by way of introduction, my name's Dave Taney. I know many of you in the room already. I'm the executive director for Mother Lode Job Training, and we are also the contracted administrator for Central Sierra Economic Development District. And I'll explain that a little bit as we move ahead. So Mother Lode Job Training, just by way of introduction, we are a federally funded workforce development agency across 4 counties, from Mariposa, Tuolumne, Calaveras, and Amador. And we serve those 4 counties through a job center in each county. So all of you in this room have one of our job centers in your county. We have one in Mariposa, Sonora, San Andreas, and Sutter Creek. So you're never far away from one of our centers. And what we do is we help businesses fill the need they have for skilled workers, and we work closely with the businesses, but we also help job seekers and workers get the guidance and the training they need to be prepared to take on those jobs. So we have 2 clienteles, both businesses and and job seekers. The value we bring is we bring money to the region, federal money coming in, and we also convene industry because we are supposed to be demand-driven. We are being more and more demand-driven over time, and that's the way we're directing our agency right now, so that instead of just training people, we're training them in the way that business needs them to be trained, and in some cases using the business themselves as the on-the-job trainer. We identify skill gaps, and we broker solutions with our many partners, many of which are in the room. That's what we do. We serve about 4,000 job seekers a year and up to about 1,000 businesses that we touch and serve. And that's for a population of about 53,000 workers. I included some statistics on your tables that you can use to kind of use as a backdrop for our meeting today. It's a 5-county, now our workforce area doesn't include Alpine, which is part of our economic development area, but Alpine's numbers are included in what you see on your table. So you can see the total population, the number of workers, and what the demographic of the community looks like. So keep that and use it in our discussions today. Our primary partners are business, economic, and development, and education. Those are the ones that we partner with to make sure that our workforce development efforts are having the biggest impact. And for businesses in particular, we can offer, think of us as an extension of your HR department. You'll see on your stat sheet that about 90% of all the 8,000 businesses in our region have less than 20 employees. So these aren't businesses that have a well-established HR department. And if you can look at us as being that department that can help you do recruiting, employee assessment, onboarding, and various other things, that's services that we can offer you. We can also offer services in the form of on-the-job training funding. So when you bring on a new employee and you have that sort of low productivity period when they're first onboarding, we can help pay their wages and offset some of that low productivity period. We can do incumbent worker training with you, where existing employees that need to be trained, but maybe you don't have the budget to do it, we can fund the training of your existing employees. We can also do work experiences where we become the employer of record and we drop labor into your business, and we pay their wages and we pay their workers' comp for some period of time. It helps. Some of these people are long-term unemployed or dislocated workers from one reason or another. There's a fire in Mariposa today. There'll be dislocated workers from that probably. And those people are candidates for the work experience program, where they get the ability to get a job and show what they can do, and the employer gets their wages paid. So it's a win-win. And so I encourage you to reach out to our job centers and our local, in your local communities, and we are already working with many of you on that. When we look at workers, so this is my segue here. So we're not here to talk about workforce development today, except to the extent that it plays into economic development. And so people that don't have, that don't need help finding a job, they find jobs, they do it on their own. So we tend to help people with barriers. Might be a veteran, someone with physical or mental disabilities. It could be someone that's trying to get off of welfare and into a job. And so we help people with barriers, but businesses have barriers too. And so when we go talk to businesses, they have a lot of barriers. They can't expand because of regulatory oversight, or there's no place to house their workers, or whatever it might be. So for us to just do workforce development without thinking about economic development, it limits what we can do. So we've taken on the mantle of economic development in this area on a regional level to try to move the needle so that our workforce development can dovetail into that. And that brings up Central Sierra Economic Development District, who is the host today, and we are also the administrators for that. That's been around since 1973. Larry Cope over here from Tuolumne County was the most recent director for that, and did a great job of sort of taking it in a, what would you call it, a dysfunctional state, and really getting it off and running and having some successes. So Larry does such a good job that his board told him to quit traipsing around the 5 counties and stay in Tuolumne County, because that's where his funding comes from. And so he was asked by his board to step out of the regional role and focus on Tuolumne County, especially on attraction, which he didn't have time to do with his regional duties. So we responded to an RFP, our workforce agency, and so that's how we are both the workforce development agency and the regional economic development agency. And because we're already in these communities on the workforce side, convening industry, convening partners, understanding what the needs are, is just an incremental shift for us to do that with our economic development hat on. And that's the hat we're wearing today. So while we're at it, I want to introduce all the economic development directors from the areas. Maybe you can stand up. Larry Cope from Tuolumne County, Kathy Galino from Calaveras County, Tara Schiff from Mariposa County, Jamie Armstrong from Amador County, and I don't know if Terry wants to take the mantle, but she's been doing the economic development in Alpine County. So these are your 5 county economic development representatives, and this is what they do. And so whatever we do here today, when we leave here, look at them as your allies in carrying on whatever momentum we do today. And we've really enjoyed working with them. And that's what gave us the idea to do this, because we've been convening a regular meeting of the 5 economic development directors, and me and my deputy director. I have to mention Larry Yanni. Many of you know Larry. Larry was in a very serious motorcycle accident about 3 weeks ago, and he's still in the hospital and gone through several surgeries, but he's now on the mend, and he's going to probably go home in a couple. We'll go into an acute care facility in a couple weeks, but just wanted to give you an update. For those of you who know Larry, he's doing okay. He's gotten through all of his surgeries, and now he's in mending mode. So we'll be looking forward to having him back soon. Okay, so focusing on what is the goal of Central Sierra Economic Development District? So we focus on facilitating regional economic development collaboration, and I just described ways that we do that by convening the economic development directors, by having a meeting like this amongst all the stakeholders, and we also we go after grants, and we have been successful doing that, and our predecessors have been successful doing that. Some examples of that would be there was a $250,000 grant for Calaveras County from Melinda Madsen and the Economic Development Administration. Melinda's right here. Do you want to wave at everybody? Melinda, thank you. So that grant went towards creating the Calaveras Business Resource Center, which was really a new concept in that area, combining the Chamber of Commerce with economic development. And we saw that in the paper and thought, that's such a great idea, we should move in with them. So I called up Stacy Johnston and said, how'd you like a roommate? And so we moved out of our facility and moved in with the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development. So we are part of the business resource. Stacy, where are you? Wave your hand. There she is over there. So Stacy's just one of those, you know how the culture is up here. We all work together to get things done. And that's why I love living here, and I think all the rest of us do too. I don't want to live in the Bay Area. I used to. I want to live here now because of people like Stacy and her willingness to. When I first talked to her, she didn't really get it, as far as, okay, what do you do? Because not that you don't get it, but that I didn't do a good job of showing the value of our agency. And once you got it, and it's been a great relationship. We're a year and a half into this, and we're actually using it as a model for other counties now. We also landed a $50,000 grant from the USDA Kim Dalbo-Van is here representing the USDA right here in front. You'll be hearing from her in a minute. And that went towards business education and business support services, so businesses that need help with various consulting. That was funded through the USDA through a $50,000 grant. We also are doing things that don't require money, but just 2 + 2 = 5 kinds of formulas we're looking at. In Amador, we've created an Amador Workforce Education Alliance that's made up of the Adult Ed, the Community College Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce, and Economic Development, and the Workforce Development. And it's been a great partnership, and we've done some good programs. And in fact, we're all going to move in together. And so we're really excited about that. We're kind of pre-announcing that today. And for those of you from Amador, I wanted to announce that we're going to be calling it the Economic Prosperity Center. That will have all of those tenants, 5 different major tenants that all support economic prosperity for both citizens and businesses. And I heard yesterday that City of Sutter Creek has now changed the name of the street to Prosperity Court. So we're really excited about that. I got excited. I don't know, maybe it's not something for you guys. But this just shows you how these things can make a difference without throwing money at it, just getting agencies that are already there to join forces and make things work. We're also doing things in Calaveras with the California Workforce Development Initiative, with the superintendent of schools and superintendents from the 2 high schools, and the economic development director, Michael Oliveira, as the county supervisor. So that's another initiative where we're looking at high school, giving kids before they leave high school a pathway to a job, and it's going to involve heavily getting industry involved. And we just did our first career day there back in April, I think it was, and it was very well received. So that's another great program that we're doing. And in Tuolumne County, we are talking with Larry on the economic development side, and Amelia Harrison over there, wave Amelia. And we're looking at doing another sort of economic prosperity center concept of combining the Chamber of Commerce. That's Amelia runs the chamber, and Larry runs economic development and workforce development, and create an economic prosperity center. Okay, so enough about, I just wanted to give you some examples of things we're doing that some are bringing money in, sometimes it's just coordination and facilitation. Okay, so what are we doing today? Today's event was, actually Larry gave me the idea for this when I took over from him, I said, what would you recommend we do? Well, we never did a regional economic development summit, so crossing 5 counties, all of you in the room. Let me ask you first, I'm going to do show of hands. So how many are here from Alpine County? Raise hand. Okay, that's half the county is here. Are the stores closed up now over there? Amador County. How many are here from Amador County? Pretty good smattering. What about Calaveras County? Woo, Calaveras. Okay, how about Tuolumne County? And last but not least, Mariposa County. So this is a pretty good representation. Tara Schiff, the economic development director from Mariposa, I said, she's helping us today with the planning. I said, when are you going to get here? Well, I can get there at 7:30. I said, well, that's a long drive for you. No, I'm going to spend the night, she said. And I thought, well, that's dedication. She's spending the night. She said, no, I'm evacuated. So she had to spend the night somewhere. You might as well be here. Okay, so I'm going to finish up and then turn this over to our first speaker. We're going to start the day with a slate of speakers, which is more of a traditional format. And we have a great group of speakers today. And I'll introduce them as they come up here. You can see on your agenda who they are, but I'll start one at a time. But they're going to tell us what their agencies do and how they can provide us resources to help us. And maybe even give some examples of things they've done in other areas that can spur some thought for us. Then we're going to do a lunchtime. We didn't schedule a talk at lunch because we wanted a chance for people to talk. I really encourage you to stay after lunch because we're going to break into a workshop session, and that's where I think we're going to get a lot of value, and that's why we call it a summit and workshop. At lunch, besides networking, we're going to have a special entertainment event, and I'll leave that hanging out there as a hook. And then afterwards, over in the corner of there is Randy Starbuck, and he's going to do a workshop where we're going to take what we heard in the morning and workshop amongst ourselves about, okay, what are the things we heard? What are the priorities? I mean, everyone already has ideas on this, but maybe the speakers can give us additional insight, and the collaboration between the counties can give us additional insight. Let's prioritize the issues and maybe come up with some predefined solutions. And then the takeaways from here would be that we've got a network now. Hopefully you're meeting people that you can stay in touch with. We will, at Central Sierra, maintain an email and sort of low-touch way for everybody to stay in touch with each other so that we can keep this going. And also maybe some solution work groups that we've got the foundation for some solutions that we could actually have some people working on. So that is all of my prepared talk. So basically the success depends on everyone in this room. So Central Sierra Economic Development District is Larry and me, and he's in the hospital. Okay? So we're not going to solve all the problems, but we can convene these meetings, we can facilitate discussion, and we can help all of you solve problems, and that's why we're here. Let me start by introducing our first speaker. And I'm going to read from your bio, Gerbax. Okay. So Gerbax Sahota is the president and CEO of California Association for Local Workforce, economic, I know, all right. Local economic development, and is an experienced association professional who believes in the importance and need to collaborate and create meaningful partnerships in order to accomplish the goal of creating healthy, wealthy communities. We like that. Gerbax turns this belief into action by aligning and leading multiple organizations focused on promoting economic development and helping business thrive in California. Gerbax holds senior positions with CalEd, which is the California Enterprise Development Authority. No, that's not the, all right. Two different things, I'm sorry. CalEd and the California Enterprise Development Authority and the California Academy for Economic Development. In addition to leading these organizations, Gerbax advances her passion for supporting economic development in California by serving on the boards and advisory panels of several organizations such as the Agricultural Technology Innovation Partnership Foundation. You need an acronym for that. Okay, all right. The Council of Development Finance Agencies, the Advisory Board for the Northern California SBDC Network, and the Expert Advisory Panel for the Smart Grid Infrastructure Build-Out Initiative. She believes economic development is key to creating a better quality of life for all California residents and is honored to play a role in that by leading the CalEd team. Please welcome Gerbax Sahota to the team.
That was quite an introduction, but it's okay. So for the Calaveras folks, I think this is the third time I've been in this venue speaking to you, including Jamie from Amador, as well as the fourth time I've been up here because of our EDA grant and the work we're doing in Calaveras. Don't worry, I'm not going to say the same things, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions that you guys should know the answers to because you've heard me speak so many times. Today my role is to get the conversation started about collaboration. And by get the conversation started, that means I'm going to ask you guys questions. It's really important that today is about having a dialogue about economic development, having a dialogue about what your goals are and what it is that you want to achieve as a region. So I'm going to cover demystifying economic development, the value of regionalism, and I have some model practices I want to share with you if time allows. But I can talk long. I realized that last week. So somebody give me 5 minutes when I'm close. I'm looking at this front table right here. Cool. All right. So let's start off, and actually before I get to this, just by a quick raise of hands, how many people in this audience are elected officials? Great. Great to see so many of you here because you are the champions. You're the voice, you're the ones that set the tone for how economic development is perceived in your community and how it moves forward in your community. So glad to see so many of you here. How many of you are practitioners? Meaning that you're the ones with the economic development title doing the work of economic development. Great. So you guys are also going to know the answers to my questions. Don't answer them. This is really about getting dialogue started. And I do want to recognize a couple of folks. Randy Starbuck as well as Larry Cope have served in leadership positions on several of the organizations that I participate in, and they are experts in economic development. Thank you for your service, and it's great to see both of you here as well. Okay, so as I ask you these questions, know that there's no wrong answer, but your answer might not match mine. So that's okay, because we need to talk about what is economic development. That's my first question. What's economic development to your county? Anybody? How do you define economic development? Prosperity. Thank you, sir, for going first. Anybody else? Prosperity. Sustainability. Is that all you guys are thinking about in regards to economic development? You're here because you want prosperity and sustainability. Is there more? I heard vitality. I heard jobs. What did I miss? Education. Somebody over here said something very quietly. Did you say strength in business? Yes. Yes, money. Better tax base. Quality of life. Digital literacy. So that's a great list. It's a great starting point, and it really speaks to how we define economic development. And we want everyone to be on the same page of what this definition is. You know, I mentioned this last week when I was here. One of the biggest issues in economic development is making sure that we do have the same definition of what economic development is. And it gets very muddled when you hear conversations about one-off topics that are related to economic development, but that don't really speak to the entire value of what it is. When we talk about economic development and we're training elected officials at the state level, whether we're talking to folks at the federal level or elected leaders at the local level, the conversation we start with them is that economic development is about the creation of wealth in which community benefits are realized. So the creation of wealth through which community benefits are realized. And if you think about that, that's kind of a circle, right? You're creating wealth in the community so that you can raise revenue, so that you can provide the services that you need for a good quality of life for your residents. But in order to get that revenue, you have to have some of those components already in place. So it's a big circle, but it really is, from our perspective, when we're talking about economic development, very focused on the creation of wealth and broad-based prosperity. So keep that in mind. And what happens from that big definition is then you start taking that to your own county and saying, what does that mean to us? So if economic development is the creation of wealth through which community benefits are realized, what is it that our community wants from our economic development program? And you guys shared some of that. Might be that your county is focused on sustainability. Maybe your county is focused on the fact that we need to improve the skills of our labor force. Maybe your economic development strategy is tied to the fact that we've got great businesses, but we need to strengthen them so they can continue to grow and continue to contribute. In rural areas, one of the things I heard consistently, one of the challenges was keeping your population. Our economic development strategy is about how do we keep the youth in the community so they don't go away to college, get educated, and never come back. So that broad definition becomes really unique to what it is that you're trying to accomplish locally. It's more than a jobs program. Jobs are an important outcome of the work you do, but they're not what you do. Economic developers don't create jobs. What you all are doing is creating an environment and a network through which businesses can thrive. And through thriving, they're going to create jobs to support your local economy. And it's important that you're clear on that One of the other things that we see that's always concerning to me is when we see economic developers and their sole metric for success is jobs. How many jobs have you kept? How many jobs have you brought in? Well, if you understand economic development, you understand it's much broader than that, and it's specific to your community. Economic development is also strategic. It's not a one-off. It's not, I've got this industrial center, we need to put something there. It's really about engaging your community, engaging the way that you guys are engaging today and talking about what is it that we want, what is it that our residents want and support. Is it that, look, we like our small town feel. We don't want a bunch of big businesses up here. Or is it that, look, we can have the small town feel in this area, but this is a great retail core that we can develop. Or maybe we want to be more focused on tourism because we think that's a way to sustain our economy beyond whatever's already currently thriving. So it's unique to your community, it's strategic, and it's measurable. When you leave here, and especially in the afternoon as you're having conversations about what you want to achieve regionally or locally, you should have metrics tied to that, that at the end of the day, you can say, this is what success looks like. So my next question, what are the benefits of economic development? What does success look like in your community? If you had a successful economic development program that was doing everything that you wanted it to do, what would that look like in your community? Throw out a metric beyond jobs. Community health. You mean like physical health or both? Okay, community health. If you had a good program, you'd have a healthy community. Anybody else? I heard somebody in the back say something about workers. Decent wages for your workers, absolutely. And then somebody over here. Educational opportunities? Yes. What else? You've got health, wages, educational opportunities. Say that again, sir. Lower incarceration rates. Yes. What else? I mean, you guys are here for a purpose. When you showed up, you thought, I want economic development in the community. I want to be a champion. This is what I want to see in my community. Okay, education. Awesome. What else? Population retention, yes. Planning and zoning. So maybe business-friendly planning and zoning, is that fair to say? Okay. Diverse jobs. Reduction in poverty. That's right, workforce housing. So that's a good list. And as you look at the things that we mentioned in that list, if that's the goal of your community, what's the benchmark? Where are you now? And then how do you measure that going forward? I can't tell you enough how important it is that, especially when you're doing economic development, that understanding it's unique to your community, that you have metrics that tie back specifically to what it is that you're trying to achieve. There is no one singular metric across every community that we've been able to identify as this is the metric of a successful economic development program, because it's very specific to what you're trying to achieve. That said, when you have individual specific goals for your community, whether that's at the city level, at the county level, it makes it very hard to start thinking regionally, because you're thinking about, okay, what do I want in my city? What do I want in my county? But there's a lot of benefits to regionalism. Before I talk about that, I'm just going to go through the list. When we're talking about benefits of economic development, some of the things we talk about, increased revenue base in particular. You guys are under the stress if you're in the public sector. If you don't have a PERS liability, you're really lucky, but that's a huge issue for a lot of our jurisdictions. You've got to get revenue. You've got to pay your police and fire. You've got services that your residents are expecting. You've got to pay your employees. So Increased revenue base is an important metric, or at least an outcome of a successful economic development program. Business retention, keeping the businesses that you already have here. So not just people retention, business retention. Economic development, diversification. Economic diversification. You can't be a one-trick pony, right? I think we've all learned that through different changes we've seen. Self-sufficiency, not being reliant on the federal government, state government, or other entity to give you resources or to be able to help you. I think all of us want that, that feeling of independence. We can make it on our own. We've got a solid economic development plan. Great if you can help us, but we're not going to fail if you don't. And then productive use of property. One of the trends, and it's been going on for some time, but more so with the loss of redevelopment, what we saw is jurisdictions mapping out their assets. What properties do we own? Are there any that we can use for the benefit of economic development in our community? And how is that going to happen? So productive and highest use of property. Those are some of the benefits we talk about. Now, I want to talk about regionalism, but I think that you guys will be really interested in something else along the lines of metrics that we saw. A couple of months ago, Site Selector magazine put out a list. They met with different site selectors from around the country and said, what are the most important location criteria you're looking at in a community when you're looking to bring a business there? Who can guess what number one is? Absolutely. Employees, workforce skills. Do you have enough people and are they trained? Number one issue. It's not incentives and how much money can you throw at us. In fact, that was number 9 on the list. What about number 2? I heard someone say housing. Housing didn't even make the top 10 list. It's definitely an issue for California, but it didn't make the list for this national survey. It's transportation infrastructure. Number 2, transportation infrastructure. Number 3, utilities and the cost and reliability of utilities. So when you're thinking about the components of your economic development program, and we talk about that circle, right, the things you need to have in place to help your businesses thrive so that you can have a successful economic development plan, be real on what it is that you need in the community to attract and keep that. All right, why regional matters. Okay, you guys are here for a regional event. Why are you here? Why do you think it's important to be here as a region to work together? I'm going to have you repeat that, sir. You said?
I said we gain more working together than we do standing on our own.
That's right. You gain more working together versus standing on your own. What else? Be more efficient. Absolutely. Great ideas. Yeah, learning from each other. Absolutely. All right, I'm running tight on time, I feel, so I'm going to go down my list as well. I feel like you have more impact, and also resources are scarce, so there's a need to, right? It's not just, there's a big issue that we see across the state, the controversy about local control. I've got my area, I want to make sure my area prospers, I want control over decision making here, but the reality is as resources become more scarce, we do have to start thinking more regionally. And it's not just the urban areas. I feel in rural areas in particular, you guys are very challenged because your assets are so spread out. So one county may or may not have everything a jurisdiction will need to be successful in economic development. So you're almost forced into partnering, but that's not a bad thing. You compete better as a region. I know for federal programs as well. And you guys, when you speak, if you have something to add on to that, Kim, I think one of the conversations we've heard from our federal partners in particular is we have scarce resources. If we're contributing, we'd rather see a regional impact than just a local impact. We want the most out of the money that we're contributing. And we've heard that with some of our private sector partners as well. Regionalism matters because it increases your population base, right? When you're in a rural community. We had a USDA grant to do some work in Imperial, and what we were trying to do is show that they had the workforce to support bringing in a back office operation like a telecommunication center or telemarketing center. We had to count the population that was coming across from Mexico into the area to show that the population base existed. It wasn't just imperial base. That boundary didn't matter. It had to be regional or they didn't have the numbers. And they actually had that traffic coming in, so it was part of their metric. But increasing your population to show that you do have the capacity to either attract or to retain the businesses that you have there. The other thing is regionalism allows you to leverage your resources, especially as we're talking about assets. Physical. How many of you, when you market yourself, talk about your proximity to Yosemite or the Sierras? Right? That's an asset that may or may not be in your county, but it's a regional asset for all of you. And if it's not physical, it could be just a name. Do you guys know where the San Francisco outlets are? In Livermore, 50 miles east. And drive time, I would imagine that's like an hour and a half, but I'm not from the Bay Area, I don't know that. But I mean, just leveraging the name of a region. One of the things, I met a gentleman, a professional economic developer from Alabama, and he was responsible for a lot of small towns. So not counties, not necessarily cities, but towns. And what the towns had done, it all collaborated. They put money into a pot and they said, look, we're going to hire you. We want you to accomplish these 5 things for all of our communities. And because they put their money in together, they could get meaningful support from him, whereas individually, not one of those communities could afford his services. So sometimes it's hard money. And then sometimes it's branding, right? Bay Area. What's the Bay Area? Is it Stockton? Does Stockton count as the Bay Area? Does Oakland count as the Bay Area, the East Bay Area? So sometimes it's just having that cool name that you can say, this is the region I'm from. When you show up from a region, I feel like you have more influence than when you show up from just one jurisdiction, depending upon what it is that you're trying to promote and accomplish. So it increases your voice, your area of influence. One example I always thought was interesting, and Barbara, you probably know this as well. How many of you are familiar with UC Davis and know where it is? Okay, what do you think their area of influence is when they're talking about how they have an impact regionally? Last time I checked, it was 9 counties. And that's probably accurate. I did not read their most recent report, so I don't know now what they're counting. But, I mean, it's a region. It's not just we have impact on Davis. Also, businesses and workforce don't recognize city and county boundaries. If I live in Calaveras, I would probably like to work in Calaveras, but if there's a great job opportunity in Tuolumne, is that going to stop me from going to Tuolumne? Probably not, depending upon the drive and your appetite for it. And collaboration beyond boundaries is also important. So when we talk about regionalism, we talk very specifically about geography, but sometimes it's also boundaries of organizations, right? It's not just how are you working with the neighboring county, it's also how are you working with other organizations that have similar missions but may or may not be doing the same work that you're doing. So this conversation you're going to have in the afternoon about collaboration should transcend boundaries, whether we're talking about geographic or organizational. It gives you the opportunity to create more impact, to leverage your resources, and allows everyone to be more effective if you're clear on what your specific role is. So I'm going to talk a little bit about model practices if I have time, and I'm looking at you all to say, I've got 5 minutes. Okay, great. So I'm going to talk fast, and I'm only going to give you a couple of examples under each one. Keep going? Okay, so model practices. Dave asked me to share with you some of the things we're seeing in the areas of business retention and expansion, business attraction, and business creation. So business retention and expansion, some of the best practices we see. If you don't know, and if you haven't heard this metric, IDC did a survey or a study in the last year or two, and one of the things they found is over 80% of net job growth comes from your already existing businesses. So think about that. If job growth is important to you, creating broad-based policies and programs and support for your already existing businesses is a very meaningful and effective way to reach that job development metric. Probably more effective than attraction, because what's the likelihood, and I don't know the answer to this, that it would be easy for you all to bring in a business that had 200 high-paying jobs? Larry's saying, yes, it happens every day in Tuolumne. No, it doesn't. Okay. So business retention is a very key and important component of economic development. So some of the great things that we've seen, Calaveras Business Resource Center, I can't say enough about it. The Calaveras folks know about it, Dave mentioned it, but great partners across organizations coming together to help their existing businesses thrive. Fresno has a BEAR program, Business Expansion and Retention, and it's technology-based, and it's through the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation. And so what happens is any partner that's working with a business can put in notes to the system and say, I've worked with this business, this is what's happening. And so that way the workforce person, the community college person, the city and county people can all see, oh, this is the contact that's already been had. Maybe I can help further, I'm going to go in. But what they were constantly doing is adding in service providers so that everyone was communicating, kind of crowdsourcing assistance for this business. So a great technology platform example. Keeping existing employers profitable. So one of the consistent things you'll know about BRE programs is they have these cool names. KEEP is one of them. BEAR is one of them. The KEEP program that stood out to me in particular, it was really focused on the elected officials going out and paying thank you visits to the already existing businesses. So obviously business recognition events. You know, I know a lot of organizations do business visits where you have the city or county staff that are going out, or maybe the chamber staff going out. It's very different when the elected officials are going out and saying, just thank you. Thank you for being in our community. We really value you. And speed dating for business, and I think, Larry, you might have done this as well. We saw in upstate California first is where I'd seen the example, but it was this notion they had made the decision that we know we're not going to compete when it comes to business attraction, but we can help our already existing employers. And so we have this great ag base, ag manufacturers, and we have a lot of restaurants and hotels and other venues that can take advantage of the great quality foods that are being produced here. Let's have a meet and greet event. It was like speed dating, right? You'd meet, but it was for the intentional purpose of getting deals. I have cheeses and wines. You need cheeses and wines. I'm here local. This is the deal I can give you. Let's make a deal. Very intentional and very much so about supporting the local businesses there. So business retention examples. Attraction, I'm just going to say SACDO, and Barbara is speaking, and she might have some great examples, but regional attraction efforts in particular, I feel are very effective. Collaborative marketing, right, where you guys pool your resources together. We have groups like Team California that go out and do road shows. SACDO is a great regional example for collaborative marketing. Another attraction example, Select USA and GoBiz. I know the Calaveras folks are familiar, but how many of you are familiar with the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development? Right, so it's important that you all connect, if you haven't already, with them, because one of the things they do is they have that large booth at the Select USA event where you get these foreign dignitaries that come in, and it's for the promotion, it's for the express intent of promoting our state and the regions within our state for outside foreign direct investment. So you've got the state and the feds that are partnering on this, and because it's the state that's going, all of your counties, your region can go and be part of that group and be represented there. I'm going to skip to creation, so I'm not cutting into other folks' time. Business creation, how many of you have entrepreneurship programs in your communities where you're helping your entrepreneurs? I see a couple. All right, I asked this question last week. Jamie and Calaveras folks, you know the answer already. If you start a business in this county, in your county, how likely are you to leave? Probably not likely, right? Like if I started a business in Calaveras, it would take a lot to get me to get out, because obviously you're from there, your family ties are there, your success is there, that's where you started. It would take a lot to get you to move and expand. So helping entrepreneurs that are looking to grow, some of the things that we've seen in Sonoma County, they have a great data support service where they will help businesses or entrepreneurs who are looking to create a business with data analysis saying, this is your market, this is what we have here, help you create a marketing plan, even a business plan. And it might be through review of that data that you find out, well, my business is probably not best suited for here, or maybe I need to look at another opportunity if this is where I want to grow. But that data support service is very valuable As most of you know, you should have a solid business plan before you go into business. It helps in that success rate. Another one is the Fresno Lyles Center, teaching your youth to be entrepreneurs. I think we've all asked kids, I know I have, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you get those answers of, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policewoman, I want to be president. How about getting them to think more thoughtfully about, I want to be my own boss. I want to have a bunch of employees, and I want to accomplish this, or I want to create things. So teaching your youth, and I believe that there's already, Fresno Lyles Center, I mentioned that in particular because I believe that they're working with one of your community colleges here on entrepreneurship training in particular. So it's not just that, okay, this person has an idea and we're providing them support. It's this, look, we've got youth in the community that we can teach them about another option other than being someone's employee. We can teach them to think about, what if I had my own business? So it's a different school of thought. Also in business creation, I do want to hit incubators, maker labs, and maker spaces. Just because you have a building does not mean that it should be an incubator or it could be a great maker lab or a great maker space. You have to have more than that. You have to have metrics, you have to have goals that you're trying to achieve, and you have to have realistic expectations. And when we talk about communities that have a building, that start an incubator and think they're going to pop out the next Apple within 2 years, that's great. But I would say that's more luck than realistic, right? If you're going to start down the path of creating these support centers, be realistic about what you can achieve, have a graduation time. So 2 years from now, whether you're super successful or not, we've got to move you out because we've got other entrepreneurs on the way that need this support. So incubators, all those types of maker labs, maker spaces are great if they're thoughtful and you've put some real effort into deciding what is it that you're willing to contribute, how much time are you willing to give to see success out of it, and at what point do you kick an entrepreneur out because they haven't succeeded and it's time to get the next business in. So that's some of what we're seeing happening across the state. I'd just like to close with sharing a few things that I think that you all can do. Across the state, there is not a community that says to us, we are doing so well, we have so many resources for economic development, it's not an issue. I've yet to hear that, and I can't wait for the day that I do, but we haven't heard it. So given that the majority of our communities have the challenge of limited resources for economic development, same for the state, be clear about who you are as a community, what your regional assets are, what your competitive advantage is. Be realistic about what your competitive disadvantage is. That doesn't mean go outside and say negative things about your community. That means know that you have this challenge and address it and account for it as you're doing your strategy for economic development. Be clear about what you want. So when someone says to you, what are the metrics of success for your economic development program? Maybe you have 3 things and you can rattle them off really quickly. Be clear about what you want. Be clear about each organization's role. City's going to do this, county's going to do this, regional organizations are going to do this, the state organizations are going to partner with us this way, workforce is going to do something else, the feds are going to do something else. Everybody needs to be clear on what your role is in the success and how you're moving forward. And the final piece, be clear on what success looks like. That goes to that metrics piece. Be clear that you know what success looks like. So that's it for my time. I appreciate your attention. Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to the conversations that come out of this. So, Dave?
Thank you, Gerbax. Are there any questions for Gerbax before we move on to the next speaker? Okay. I will try to not mispronounce half the words on this bio. We have really a great group of speakers today, and we asked Gerbax to go first because she has such a great understanding of economic development. I think it's misunderstood sometimes, and everyone thinks economic development means something different, and then you go back to your county and you're expecting your economic development director to turn water into wine. But it's really all of us working together towards some well-defined, achievable goals that's important. So thank you for that, Gerbax. Okay, our next speaker is Kim Dalbo-Van. She's the State Director of the United States Department of Agriculture, Rural Development in California, USDA. She was appointed by the Trump administration in November 2017. Kim brings more than 20 years of experience and dedication to economic development and the improvement of rural life. Most recently, she spent 11 years as a Colusa County supervisor representing the 1st District. During her tenure, she served as the chair of the Rural Counties Representatives of California, RCRC, and led the charge on all federal and state issues that affect rural counties. In addition, for the past 2 years, she served as the chair of Sites Reservoir Joint Powers Authority, leading the new public-private partnership in creating an above-ground water storage facility in rural Colusa County. Kim hails, how do you hail, Kim? Kim hails from a 6th-generation farming family and is a lifelong California resident. And as USDA State Director, she uses her leadership experience to oversee rural development programs in a customer-focused manner to restore prosperity in rural California. Please welcome Kim Doublevan.
Well, 10 or 11 years ago, I could do this without notes because I could remember things. I was just sitting at the table kind of complaining, I can't see anymore, I can't remember anything more, and what am I doing today? There's so many friends here in the room. I'm so happy to be in this role and to be able to be here with all of you to help in all our global goals with rural prosperity. But what I'd like to do is kind of dovetail where Gerbach stopped. She set the stage for what we all know we need to be successful in economic development. Well, I have the privilege of running one of the state agencies that gets to help fund the actual economic development projects. Rural prosperity is our goal. And I wrote these notes before I heard what you all said a little while ago, but it's perfectly matched up. We're here, rural development is here, to help build safe, healthy, economically vibrant communities. And as Gerbach pointed out, that is through wealth building in our counties. We all know that sounds really great, so how do we do that? One of the things I think that USDA has, we're kind of the hidden gem, folks. I'm going to ask a question. How many of you in here has interfaced with any of the USDA rural development staff or myself on projects? We're not doing a very good job of communicating. One of our challenges right now is funding for communication and getting the message out. So I'm really happy to be able to be here today to talk about some of our projects. I've come to realize that my RD team are the real experts in economic development. And I know that sounds kind of bold, but I bring with me today such a great and fantastic group of dedicated folks that want to build projects and help you build projects in your community. I couldn't be more sincere about what I just said. So we promote and fund business and industry projects in your communities through grants and loans. We grant and loan funds for communities, cities, and counties for water systems, wastewater systems, and support infrastructure. We grant and loan money for anything from fire facilities, police equipment, to roads and bridges. We fund and support housing, from single-family housing to multifamily and farm worker housing. Now, somebody said earlier that one of the issues is having employees in our counties when businesses, come in and try to decide whether or not they want to move there. Well, traveling all over the state this last 6 months, I've realized one of the biggest challenges is housing in California. I'm going to have my two program directors who are here with us today for multifamily and single family come up in a few minutes and talk to you about housing. Almost every single one of our rural counties in the state have a housing issue. So how can we have those employees in our community if they don't have some place to live? And if they don't have some place that's affordable to live, if we're honest about it. We actually engage and support in rural communities to help battle the opioid crisis through health clinics and alike. We're gearing up in the near future, hopefully, to be able to support and fund extremely large broadband projects. Now, stay tuned for that. We're in the process of writing the rules. It will be in the fall, but keep in touch with us, and as soon as I know, you all know, because I know how important that is to attract businesses into your communities. Currently, we do a number of telemedicine and distance learning broadband grants, but I know the real issue is the backbone and the infrastructure in your communities. Frankly, I'm just kind of scratching the surface here on a lot of the programs we have and what we have available to all of you. So I think the most practical thing to do is to bring up each of my team members, and they're going to share a story with you or a project they've done in a community outside of the area that hopefully sparks you all thinking about, well, we could do that in our community. Why aren't we doing this? You know, I could get up here and rattle off, you know, all the 47 different funding sources I have in my office, which, by the way, for rural California, totals $1.6 billion this last year. I have a $1.6 billion portfolio to invest in rural California. You need to call us. We'll do our best to reach out to you guys, and I think announcing some of the partnerships that we have after I bring up my staff, I think we're going to have a better ability to communicate with this region and really start getting funding out in this area. So I think first, I want to go ahead and start with Pete. He doesn't know he's going first. Pete is our water and wastewater program director and is handling our community facilities right now. So Pete's going to come up and share a few projects that we've done in the state and what we're working on.
Well, good morning, everyone. I actually have a couple of different programs to talk to you about, and maybe after the break we can get into more discussion on your individual projects and how we can help on those. Our first program, and we'll get you some handouts too here in a little while, is our water and wastewater program. We can finance construction and improvements on domestic water and wastewater systems. We offer low fixed interest rates. The interest rates range from 2 3/8 to 3 7/8, depending on, you know, the community's income and whether there's a health and safety violation in the community. To be eligible for that, you have to be under 10,000 population for this particular program. And just to give you an idea of our portfolio, we have 440 loans throughout the state that are currently active, and public bodies, nonprofits, tribal entities are all eligible. And this fiscal year we received about $134 million under this program, and just to give you an idea, 17 million of that is actually grant funds. And so what we try to do is when we fund projects, it's usually a mix of loan and grant, and we try to spread that out to different projects. You know, in the past, I pulled some information on the 5-county area that we're talking about here, and we've been pretty active in the area. Just looking back, over the past 10 years, we've actually put $43 million into this area just under that program. Applications can be submitted online anytime throughout the fiscal year, and some of the projects we funded here in the area is we worked with Calaveras County Water District, Amador Water Agency. We've actually funded a project right up the road in Arnold and Blue Lake Springs recently, and I think they're just starting on construction. So we've been pretty active. Another program we have, Kim touched on a little bit, is our community facilities program. Again, it's 40-year terms, low fixed rate at 3.875. The kinds of projects that fit under that are education, public facilities, public buildings. To be eligible, you got to be under 20,000 population for that particular program. And we received $43 million in that program this year, and about 700,000 of that in grant. So again, we're pretty active in the area. One thing I'll leave you with under that program that's kind of unique, we've just started to finance is irrigation districts. We recently did a project where they replaced irrigation district water lines under that program. They were getting old, leaking a lot, and so we were able to finance quite a large project and really helped the community out. It benefited the whole area, you know, the economy by fixing that. So with that, hope to talk to you later on.
Dave told me I couldn't hand out any of the brochures or the detailed information until after lunch to make sure you all stayed. So just listen to a couple of the projects that Pete brought up. How many of the electeds in the room know of some water or sewer infrastructure problems you're dealing with right now? How many of you in the room know that that's preventing you from opening up more land for housing, industrial sites, commercial sites, and business attraction? Would a majority of you say it's water, sewer, broadband, waste disposal issues? Oh, that's good. Okay, you can cross that one off. We'll stick with the water and the waste. In all seriousness, it's expensive to build these projects. I know this, and I know we don't have enough grant money to go around, but with the type of guarantee programs we have, it's really inexpensive money. So I would really encourage you all who are dealing with this to get in touch with Pete, because that's the backbone of everything else we're talking about we want to do. If we can't get the infrastructure in, if we don't have a safe and reliable source of water, if we don't have the sewer capacity to expand our land use options, we really can't do any of these other things that create wealth in our communities. So with that, I want to move on to probably one of my favorites. I say this all the time and everybody else gets mad at me, but I do have a background in residential construction, so I have a little bit of an affinity for housing. We have with us today Stephen and Ron. Stephen runs our multifamily housing project and Ron program, and Ron runs our single-family housing. So I think I'd like Stephen to come up first and talk a little bit about what we're doing in multifamily housing, what you all could have access to, and kind of what multifamily housing means to us in RD.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning, everyone. I've been taking more of a note than anything else because the speaker here that talked about the top 10 economic developments, did not include housing, which was a big surprise. But if you're in California, you know that housing is almost about everything. So in our portfolio, we have about 522 projects throughout the states with about 28,000 units. About 8 of them are under construction right now. And for Tuolumne County, we have about 9 projects. So I'm going to probably just use that as an example and ask if people know where these projects are located. I have Blackberry Oaks. Anybody knows what that is? Okay. How about East Garden Apartments? Okay. Greenwood Village, Jamestown Terrace, Sierra Commons Apartments, Sierra Village, Sonora Gardens, Sonora Terrace, and Tuolumne City. This is just a sample of what we have. So for Amador, we have about 4 projects. Calveras, we have about 5. Like I said, Tuolumne, we have about 9. And about 10 in Mariposa. One of the key elements of our program is affordability. So as you know, there hasn't been too many new monies put into affordable housing by the federal government. Most new constructions these days, you will have to get some funding from other sources. And with the demise of the Rural Development Agency in the state, The only other way you can get plenty of money in is to go through tax credit, which is highly competitive. So some people here may know what that entails. So most of our funds are now delivered through notice of funding availability or notice of solicitation of applications, which runs once in a year. So at this present time, we have one that will close August 27th for the farm level housing. And that's more of a demand in the central and as well as the coastal areas where housing prices are out of reach. So that's the only way we deliver new programs. But also we have guaranteed loan program, which is for workforce type housing. So I'm looking to mix in with some people, during the breakout to talk about it. That one, we have $250 million every year that is replenished by Congress as it draws down. So we have a NOSA, but it is for 4 years. And so we don't lack money in that one. So we have about 100 million remaining. And so if it goes out, we just, get another authorization to continue. So that's one way we deliver affordable housing these days. One last thing I want to talk about is the subsidy. It's okay we build housing, but if people can't afford it, then it's no good. For our rental housing, regardless that we haven't built new ones in many years, we're delivering subsidies through rental assistance. For Amador, each year so far, we've committed about $419,000 towards, making sure people who occupy these units that are subsidized do not pay more than 30% of their disposable income. So it's important to us, no matter what the rents are, that people can achieve to afford to live in those units. For Calveras, that figure is about $982,000 a year. For Tuolumne, it's 1.6 million. So this money is going in, year out, regardless that we don't have new units. But we are providing them on a sustained basis. So in the 5 county areas mentioned, we're delivering about $5 million in rental subsidy each year. So that's our investment to make sure that housing remains affordable. So we spend quite a bit of time rehabbing what we already have. So we have applications pending in tax credit. For instance, we have Jamestown that is going to go through rehab. And I'm meeting with the attorney out of San Francisco, Gary Downs, that is looking to purchase it, preserve it, and keep it going. So that's bulk of my work this time, and I think Ron can come up. Thank you.
Multifamily is an extremely complex animal with the tax credits and with the subsidies and everything that goes into it. But when your developers are coming in, and I can say this as a former county supervisor in Colusa County, so I know subsidized housing isn't popular in a lot of our communities. I know when you hear when people hear workforce housing or when they hear affordable housing, there's this negative connotation to it. I will tell you, it doesn't look anything like it looked in the 80s and the 90s. Not the product that's coming out of our shop. There is criteria. We work with the developers to make sure that it fits in with the community that it's going in. One project, if anybody's ever in Woodland, California, there's a project called Spring Lakes that is it's a multifamily housing project that Stephen did that is right in the middle of one of the highest end developments in Woodland. So a piece of the property was carved out and it was put in the middle of these houses. It's aesthetically pleasing, looks similar. The kids go to the same school. Stephen won, Stephen won an award for this project. But I would encourage any of you who have concerns, who have to answer to our constituents, go look at some of these projects. We should have brought some pictures today. That's on me. But it's really impressive what these projects look like. and how they're a lot less like they used to be, separated from the rest of the community. You know, the whole point is integrating everybody and having the kids go to school together and people communicating with each other better. I'm really proud of these projects, and I would encourage any of you to get in contact with us or go see them when you come through. So I'm going to turn it over to Ron now, who does our single-family housing program, and it's a whole different animal than multifamily.
Thank you, Kim, and good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here to share with everyone about the single-family programs that we have available. What I hope to do is explain two programs, our flagship programs, and what we do, and then go into a couple of recent economic development activities that we've conducted to spur more single-family development in rural counties. As you know, Kim has a soft spot for small rural counties. And I would say there's 5 of them here. You can't get smaller or more rural than the mother lode counties that you have here. And that was attested and reminded that in my drive up here. It was very beautiful up here, and you guys got a lot of great natural resources. And so first I want to go over a couple of programs. First is our direct program, and it's a large program, about $1.1 billion nationally. And in California, we fund about 115, 120 million of those funds in the state of California. So far, this year, we funded 94 million, and we got about 2 more months left to go. And fortunately, being small and rural, all of the areas are eligible in all of these 5 counties. Every city, every nook, every cranny is an eligible area for this program. So that's a good thing. Now, one of the things that Kim and I and our other program directors have conducted outreach to some of these smaller communities. And every time we go into the community, the first thing they ask is, man, we need affordable single-family houses for our workers. And I think with economic development, you don't usually think of housing as an economic development topic, but really it becomes an economic development topic when you don't have houses available for your workers, and then companies decide maybe not to move there, or like you say, you're trying to retain the next generation to stay here. And so affordable housing and nice homes is one of the key elements. So basically, to be eligible for the home, they're a modest-sized home. They have to be less than 2,000 square feet. And the loan limit for Calaveras County, I just picked one of the counties, is $330,000 for that county, for this county. And so it's what we call an affordable home or a first-time homebuyer house. There are 100% loans to the homeowners. There's no down payment required for the program, which makes it easy for folks to get into the home. And for the underwriting parameters, credit score of 640 or less. You have basic underwriting ratios of 29:41 for your loan payment and your total debt ratios of your gross annual income. And then you have to have stable income. So it's basic. It's not too onerous. A lot of folks can get into the program. And one of the good things about the program is that we can buy the interest rate down from the current 3.75% to 1%. To help people get into their homes. So it makes a real affordable payment. And the second program that we have is a guarantee program. And that program is more of a modest income program, 115% of the median household income for the county. And so what those limits would be for a 1 to 4 person household, $83,150 for the household income. And for a 5 to 8 person household, $109,750. So that really goes to the basic moderate income type house. There's no size limit on the homes, and they can be located, like I say, throughout the county. The lenders make the loans, and then we provide a guarantee for those. For example, at Tuolumne County last year, or for the last 5 years, we funded 217 loans for $40 million in that program. Nationwide in that program, it's a $24 billion program, and in California we fund approximately $450 million a year in that program. So it's a good active program. So both programs can be good economic development tools for you. Now I want to jump into just a brief example of economic development efforts we conducted in Lake County. We contacted a local economic development agency there, CDS, and they worked with us in putting together some initial meetings for folks. So we held basically some meetings with the local community, and what basically came out of it was that there is a big demand for affordable houses. We had the Wine Grape Association there present, and we had 2 vineyards there, Beckstoffer Vineyards, and then we had another vineyards there, and then we had a pear packing facility. So what we did was we put together a housing fair. We drove out to their vineyards, held a housing fair with realtors, lenders, and rural development staff, and we presented to their workers, because their big thing there was they wanted to retain their workers, because they were losing people that really couldn't have a house. They would move on to a more affordable area, and they needed folks to work in the vineyards, which, by the way, is pretty hard work. So as a result of that, we ended up with a number of pre-qualifications. We took them with us, and then we've already funded 3 guarantee loans through that program, and we're going to close our first direct loan program, through that next week. So we've held 2 housing fairs there, and we have 1 more. The Cobb Mountain fires, you guys have heard of the fires, and I heard some of them mentioned here today, burned about 2,000 homes in that area. And some of the homeowners still, unbelievably, do not have homes. And some of them, when you drive through the community, you'll see they're living in RVs and kind of hanging out and kind of waiting. Some of them have paid off their first mortgage, and they own a piece of dirt and an RV, and that's all they have. So we're going to be holding a fair on August 10th to work with them to provide some loans for them to help construct and build their homes. So we're looking forward to that one coming up here. So that's a prime example. I'm going to leave that with you, and I have a bunch of handouts here. I've completed a handout for each one of the 5 counties that talks about loan limits and all the loan parameters. So if you want to talk developments, I'll be over at that table there, and I won't charge you too much.
Ron's being a little modest about what he did in Lake County and what we got accomplished there. And how this started was, I can tell this part of the story. How this started was I was working with one of the county board of supervisors, and they felt like they were kind of struggling with their colleagues a little bit when it came to housing, and they said, Kim, come to the board meeting. So we all go tromping up to Lake County and sat at the board meeting and said, well, we can do affordable housing, we're here. We had about 45 people in the audience from Lake County who were there to tell the supervisors that they wanted us to do this, and that wasn't our intention. But one of the supervisors called me afterwards and said, that's the most people we've had in a board meeting in 10 years that were in a good mood. Just saying. So this was kind of a reversed approach for us. We went to the industry leaders. Instead of going to the county, we started talking with the wine grape growers, because that industry is growing in Lake County by leaps and bounds. So what do you need, wine grape growers, to keep your businesses growing, to keep sustaining in Lake County? This was kind of a pilot project on our part, and Ron's happy to do these in all of your counties, by the way, and he's never going to talk to me again now that I said that. But we went to them and said, hey, what do you need? And the first thing they needed was housing. They needed their folks to be able to stay there. They needed their folks to be able to have houses to raise their families, have some ownership in the community. And I just couldn't be prouder of my crew and Ron's creativity in getting together the lenders, the contractors, the electeds, everybody who touches, the home buyers, everybody who touches the process of getting into a house. And like I said, we have several more in the pipeline. Ron's already closed a handful of them. And the momentum from there in Lake County has just built. One of the EDCs is going to become one of our USDA packagers. I know I'm really getting in the weeds here, but the opportunities and the creativity that we can do in USDA is pretty unique to a federal agency. So really talk to Ron and Stephen about your housing needs, and we'll do everything we can to be creative and support what you need. And I didn't finish my thought at the beginning on housing. When your developers are coming into your communities, we all know what our HCD numbers are. We know what we're supposed to do to meet those goals. Some counties have, some funds there to help with that. But when your developers are coming in and wanting to do these types of projects, send them our way. We'll talk to your builders and your developers and get them in the program from their side of it and our side of it to help support this in your community. And we'll all come together to make sure we're meeting your housing goals. I know housing's a touchy subject, but we really can, create a great product that you all can be proud of in your community and help support your workforce. So, with that, I'm going to make a leap here into our business programs. We have with us today Karen Rich, who is our program director for our business programs, and this ranges from anything from B&I loans to value-added producer grants to energy programs to help support your current businesses. But Karen's going to talk to you about what we're doing in some of your areas and give a couple examples.
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody? I love Calaveras County. I love the mother lode, and I love driving up here. We got a little lost on the way up, but that was fun because we got to see more of Calaveras County. And I took the back road up, and I drove up with Steve Nodum, and he was like, "This is so beautiful. I would love to live here. It's great. Look at all the room. Look at all the space. Look at all the great things there are here." And as I'm driving along, I'm pointing to him. That's a gas station we've done. That's another winery we did. So, I'm going to read somebody else's notes up here. So I get excited when I go on drives because I like to point out all the projects we funded or we assisted in funding. So who calls me in a day? Who emails me in the day? So our customers are everybody, individuals, banks, economic development corporations. Gerback sometimes calls me. So we have businesses call me. Sometimes I get housing calls. It's a wide array of people that are looking at ways to help their communities. And farmers also call me. And so I usually have an answer for everybody, what we can do to help them. And sometimes I do turn the calls and the emails over to Ron when it is housing. But in most cases, if I don't have a program that will help, one of our partners does. And so we work very closely with our partners to make sure that we can cover as most of our communities we can with economic development. So as I was driving down, I looked over 99 and we went through Galt, and as I went through Galt, I said, oh, we've done a lot of anaerobic digester projects here, keeping the air clean and turning that manure into energy. And so that is with our energy program. And then as I'm driving by, I'm thinking, oh, but we also have done solar projects on the wineries and on some of our small business owners, and that's our energy program. And we have, I'd already told you about the gas station we passed, and that was with our business and industry guaranteed loan. As I'm standing here right now, we did a guaranteed loan with a bank for a $9 million loan quite a few years ago. I think Ron did that loan, right? And so I'm not quite sure what we funded with it because Ron did it and I wasn't program director yet, but we were able to help Ironstone. And we've also helped wineries and other small ag businesses and big ag businesses take a product they have and make it into a value-added product. So as we were driving down 99 and on our way up here, you might notice that we grow some almonds. I'm from the East Coast. I really don't get into the fray of how you pronounce almonds because I pronounce it with a Jersey accent. So anyway, we funded our cooperatives and helped some of our cooperative businesses by supporting a value-added grant where we fund a project where they were able to introduce a new product overseas that's called Almond Breeze. How many of you have heard of Almond Breeze? Or how about those bold almonds? That was one of my very first projects I worked on, was I introduced those interesting flavors besides Smokehouse. So, and we've done feasibility studies where groups have said, should we start a slaughter facility? Because do you remember all the cattle people? They all want a mobile slaughter unit. Well, was it feasible or not? So we funded a grant for them to, the whole industry, to look at options for small producers. Was it feasible for them to have a mobile slaughter unit? What else have we done? Hotels. We've done a lot of hotels as well. And as we were driving in, there's a hotel, a historic hotel in Murphy's. We did a guaranteed loan for that as well. So we're really able to support either with a guaranteed loan. We have economic development corporations and lenders that we lend money to, and then they lend the money to small and intermediate-sized businesses. So we're kind of like all around, but you don't really see us in how we're helping your community. So I want you to write this down. My name is Karen Rich, R-I-C-H, very simple. And my phone number is 530-792-5825. And then this is the other trick. Anybody here, you want to contact them, you just take their first and last name. So for me, it's Karen, Karen .rich @ca.usda.gov. So if you want to contact Pete, you have to figure out how to spell his last name first, and you go Pete Iberian, Pete.Iberian @ca.usda.gov. And you can do... Kim's is the same. So, or you can call me and I'll put you in contact with anybody that you want to know. So I think that gives a good overview. I'm business, energy, and cooperatives, but we really cover so many different areas. I have a handout that lists 14 of our programs. So I hope to talk to all of you. If you call, you can just say you met me at this event, and I won't remember your name, but I'll remember your face. So thank you.
Karen really does have a wide variety of programs underneath her, and it's really unique. I was standing here while she was speaking and kind of looking around at this room. You know, USDA, Rural Development, did the loan for this facility that we're all in today. So how many jobs do you think that created? What was the economic draw by having this facility here? When you look out at the amphitheater, I was actually driving up the little road, and I remember one time when I came up here when there was an event, how crowded that road was. So I was just standing over here thinking, you know, that one loan changed the dynamic of this area because somebody picked up the phone and called and asked. Maybe it was too expensive at the bank. Maybe it was too expensive on the commercial market. They were able to come to us and get it done. I really do have the most creative people in this shop who care so much about rural communities, and they want to get your projects done. So ask. Even if it doesn't fit the mold in these boxes you're going to see in our handouts, just ask. Call Karen and ask. Call Pete and ask, well, what, can we do this? Well, what about this? And we'll put our heads together and figure it out. And if not, maybe we can point you in the direction of another agency that can help. But it's really kind of neat when I was standing back there to kind of look up, you know, at the chandelier and look around the room and think, well, we're all even here in this room because of something that USDA was able to do. So I'm really proud of that. So one last person I want to bring up, last but not least, of course, is Dan Johnson. Dan has been with USDA for a while, has touched lots of our programs, and is currently in the Community Economic Development role. We call him our CED, doing some outreach and some unique job duties on some of our more farther-reaching projects, you know, not our standard projects like BNI, but he's going to share with you a couple things he's worked on. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you for calling me up last, because my role is a little different. It's an absolute treat being here today. I come from Bakersfield. I'm typically working in Southern California. I've heard a couple of names. I've been on conference calls with my northern counterpart, Carol Pranka, in recent months as you were developing this agenda. But in community economic development, our role is just a little bit different. We're part of a newly established innovation center at the DC level that is working to help rural communities through developing strategic partnerships. And that's really kind of the community economic development piece. We've got a best practices page on our website that can give you all kinds of resources. There's email blasts that go out with funding opportunities. Our mission is to increase economic opportunity and like Kim said earlier, improve the quality of life in rural America. So we complement these other programs that you've heard from and kind of work across program lines. Our place is to extend our reach by connecting people with partners and other entities to not only help communities increase their access capacity building skills, but also increase their ability to access capital. We also do quite a bit of work with Native American groups, providing outreach to tribes up and down the state as well. And so just to give you an idea of a couple of projects that we've worked on in over the years, as I said, I'm from Bakersfield, Kern County. There's a number of economic development drivers in eastern Kern County. We have a community that Mojave, many of you have driven through it. If you've driven to Las Vegas, they rerouted Highway 58 and bypassed the downtown area, which had a huge negative impact on the businesses in Mojave. So the airport district there kind of became the economic development driver, and they had a building that was 10,000 square feet that had been occupied by a single tenant in the air industry for many, many years that was sitting there vacant. So they had a well thought out idea for an incubator, and through our funding, through one of Karen's programs, rural business, it used to be economic, RBAG was our little acronym, Rural Business Enterprise Grant, now known as Business Development Grants. We were able to work with the county and some state funding, and our piece of that was to fund some accessibility issues for the building. They had to add a ramp, had to do some remodeling to the bathroom at one end of the building and actually add a bathroom at the other end of the building. It's been successful. The first tenants that moved in, one was a cell phone company, another was a car rental company, another was a professional business. I think a CPA did some kind of accounting. I think they did have like a 2-year kind of cycle that they were pushing them out into the community. But anyway, just an idea of kind of developing partnerships and working through these projects together. So again, it's an absolute treat being here. This is my first time in Murphy's. I think I've been as far as Angels Camp in the past. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dan. I know we're running a little bit over into the break, but do you want me to give out some money or do you want a break? Okay, just checking, Dave. So they're okay with it. So one of the things I touched on, I'll be really quick. One of the things I touched on at the beginning is when I asked you all how many of you have contacted RD or done a project, and not very many people raised your hand. We struggle with communication in our agency because of how our funding works and what I can and cannot do with that. So our new goal, since I've been here, is creating partnerships so that we can get the word out and we can create good communication and we don't duplicate efforts. So Gerbach touched on all the principles of economic development. I'm struggling here, guys, and what we need to do. So I'm hoping with this new partnership I'm going to announce, the goal is have Gerbach identify them, talk about them, and help you guys get a plan together. And hopefully you can come to us and help fund them. And I think one of the most challenging things for locals, for us in our small communities, is knowing about all these resources that are available. So Gerbach, will you come up here for just a second? So I'm extremely pleased to announce that we're going to be awarding $125,000 to CalEd for their efforts in creating this rural communication tool, whether it's a web-based format or a paper-based format, so all of you have an easy place to go to find out what resources are available to you all for economic development. So congratulations. I'm so proud of Gearbox and CalEd with their new rural component. You know, her board, she got her collective board on board. And so this is just, again, kind of us putting our money where our mouth is and following through with that commitment to you all and to CalEd so that you have the tools you need to get it done. I know as a county supervisor, it's going to sound funny, I knew about 2 USDA RD programs when I was appointed. I should have known a lot more. So we're really hoping that this partnership with CalEd is going to facilitate this communication with you all. So thank you again. Okay, so our second one, by the way, I just want to say that these are 2 of our larger grant awards through this program, the 2 I'm going to announce today. So I don't just love Lake County. You guys are being rewarded for your innovation in being regional. It's really hard for us, I know, as communities to partner and not think one community is going to get more than the other. So this next award really does acknowledge what you all have done to break down those barriers and become a region for your long-term goals. So with that, Dave, you want to come on up? Oh, Terry, come on. So this is, I think, our second largest grant award for this year in this program. So I'm very pleased to be able to award $178,000 to second largest. First? Oh, it's the number 1. Sorry. When I first met Dave and Larry and the other Larry, and we were all talking about this and kind of meshing these ideas together, I realized that through RCRC I had an experience to be able to learn what the, lack of a better word, fire counties have to deal with. Being from the valley floor, I didn't have that intrinsic knowledge of what you all have to deal with and how much more you struggle with your watershed issues, your forestry issues, you know, all the agencies and regulations you have to deal with, and how that impacts your economic development and your workforce. So this grant is really going to hopefully allow for some creative workforce development and economic development in the biofuels area. I know we've all done this, you know, gone down this biofuels route. The technology's changing, the workforce that's needed is changing, and we're really hoping that this is the first step in developing your local workforce for biofuels and the resource-based industries that you have up here. So with that, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I guess, Dave, do they get a break? Yes. Do you want to say anything? Okay, I guess you get a break. 15 minutes.
Okay. So I just wanted to add one more, expand on what Kim had mentioned about the grant for the $178,000 for Central Sierra Economic Development District. In addition to biofuels, it's going to be used to fund feasibility study for any kind of business that would use biomass as a material. So it's not limited to biofuels. It's a feasibility study to look at business development and job creation through a sustainable business of using biomass. So we're really excited about that. Okay, next on the list, we're going to introduce Rich Gordon. Rich is the president, CEO of the California Forestry Association, the trade association for the forest resources industry. and leader in the vitality of California's economy and environment while providing natural wood products from healthy, sustainable forests. Prior to assuming his role with Cal Forests, Rich served as a member of the California State Assembly from 2010 to 2016 and served as chair of the Rules Committee for 3 different speakers of the House. As a member of the Assembly, he earned the respect of his colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Before serving in the Assembly, Rich served for 13 years on the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. In 2008, he was president of the California State Association of Counties. Prior to public service, his vocation was as a minister in the United Methodist Church. And for 20 years, he worked in the nonprofit sector, where he was the founder and executive director of Youth and Family Assistance. Rich graduated from the University of Southern California, fight on, and he has a master's in divinity from Garrett Theological Seminary at Northwestern University. Please welcome Rich Gordon.
Thank you, Dave. I think you've got my entire life history in that introduction, but thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to tell you that I'm now in a role as president and CEO of the California Forestry Association, a role that is completely unexpected for me. I don't live and have never lived in a rural county. I've never lived in a forest. My home is in the Silicon Valley. I live 1 mile from the world headquarters of Facebook. I have always lived where there are sidewalks. But I really feel like I'm at the right place at the right time, representing an industry that does work in a sustainable way to improve the health of our forests. And the California Forestry Association represents the timber companies in California. There are 30 of these companies that are actively producing lumber at the moment in California. The interesting dynamic is that none of those companies are multinationals. All the big timber companies left California. Weyerhaeuser left. Louisiana Pacific left. Georgia Pacific left. The 30 companies that produce timber in California are all family-owned or owned by family trusts. They are very much tied to the land, a part of the land and a part of their communities. They care very much about the places where they work and live, and they care very much about the communities that they live in and where their employees live. I want to take a minute and just talk about the state of California's forests. And actually, it's really very, very simple. We have too many trees. There are too many trees in our forests. We've loved our forests to death. We have engaged in very aggressive fire suppression. We've had a federal government that's not invested in forest management. And we've created the strictest forest regulations in the entire world. And so how did that happen? How did that happen? Again, fairly simply, the people who make the rules weren't connected to these communities. They weren't a part of these communities. Urban communities dominate the public process in the state of California. They have the votes, they have the money, they have the power. When I was sworn in as a member of the California State Assembly, there's a ritual that occurs, and they call the new members by county. And so when Alpine County was called, one individual stood up. When Tuolumne County was called, the same individual stood up. When Mariposa County was called, the same individual stood up. When Los Angeles County was called, 25 different people stood. So the challenge that we face in our industry and in working on the health of the forests in general in California, and thereby improving the economics of our rural communities, is simply the fact that the urban folk don't know your counties, don't know your communities. They come here to visit. They want to recreate, they want to hunt, they want to go fishing, they want to go boating, but they're tourists. And by definition, a tourist sees a place but doesn't know a place. As they drive through our communities in their SUVs, these rural folks may see a closed sawmill, but they don't know and they don't understand the devastation of job loss, poverty, and the abandonment of hope. Folks who live in urban communities have been sold beautiful calendars of our forests by the environmental community. But the environmental community has also sold them a bill of goods. And I say this as a lifetime member of the Sierra Club. If you live in an urban community, you've been told that every tree is sacred. You can't cut a single tree. You've been told that timber companies destroy the land and that forest practices leave hundreds of acres scarred as if they'd been strip mined. I remain struck by the disconnect. Folks that I live near in the Silicon Valley love their redwood decks, but they have no clue as to where that redwood ever came from. Maybe this shouldn't surprise me. I don't know if you heard, but recently there was a poll done of high school freshmen, and they asked, where does milk come from? The number one response, the store. And so there is a disconnect from the folks who make the rules in our communities. And because of that, in some ways, the forests that were once an asset for your communities have become a liability. We are, however, at a rare moment of opportunity. It's caused by the fact that for the past 15 months, California has been on fire. And in places where fire hadn't occurred before. Now, I don't ever tell the folks in the legislature that the wine country is not a timber forest. They still call what happened in the wine country a forest fire. That's fine with me, even though it was shrub and brush, because now I have their attention about what needs to be done to improve the health of the forests. It's fairly unique when one of the most liberal members of the state Senate, who lives in Santa Barbara, is this year carrying legislation to reduce the liability incurred by landowners who do prescribed burn to improve their forests. That tells me we're in a changed environment, and there's a moment and a window of opportunity. It's also been captured by others. This public watchdog, the Little Hoover Commission, issued a major report calling on forest health improvement activities. So did the Public Policy Institute of California, the Legislative Analyst's Office. They've all said the same thing. We have to reduce the growth in the forests, And we've got to find some place to use the material that we pull out of the forest, whether we turn it into timber or whether we use it in some form of biomass. The governor recently issued an emergency order on forest management, and out of that process has created a task force that will look at forest management issues. There's a lot to be said about what that task force needs to do, and some real concern about whether it will actually move in the right direction. But there's also a legislative conference committee been formed on fire management. This again is a first. The legislature has a vehicle called a conference committee where members of the Senate and the Assembly can be brought together. That vehicle has not been used in almost 30 years, but is being used this year with a conference committee on forest issues. And so what does that mean for us? It means that there's a window of opportunity here to try to improve forest management and forest health by taking a look at the rules and regulations and making some adjustments and making things easier to get work done. Taking a look at how we can work with small landowners. The folks in my association are all large landowners, but we have concerns and want to work with those who have 5,000 acres or less and have got some lands that need to be thinned and fireproofed in some way. And so there's opportunities for forest management. There's new opportunities for biomass and biofuels. And there's an emerging new opportunity for mass timber, something called cross-laminated timber, if you've heard of that. It will be the wood product of the future and will have a huge impact long term. The cross-laminated timber has the capacity to allow you to build with strength with wood. There is today at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, an 18-story dormitory built 100% with wood using this cross-laminated timber. We'll be able to build tall buildings with this material, and it will allow us to have greater use for our timber products. The state has also responded by providing some additional funding for forest management and for rural communities, both from the State General Fund and from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. There's newly adopted in the budget that went into effect on July 1st, $500,000 to implement a mass timber building competition. So we will have one of those tall buildings built somewhere in the state of California. There's $1 million in the general fund for grants to local communities to support mass timber and wood product manufacturing. That money is in the hands of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and you should contact Jim Brannon if you're interested in learning more about that opportunity to create mass timber facilities. There's also from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund $160 million for state and local fire prevention projects and vegetation management, biomass. And there's $20 million for grants to support landscape level forest health projects. Both of those activities are grant activities under the purview of CAL FIRE, and you should contact them. And let me just talk for just a second about the role that we're playing at the California Forestry Association in all of this. We, earlier this year, drafted what we've called our Forest Health Initiative, an 18-page document outlining what we believe needs to occur to make California's forests healthy and to improve the economic vitality of our rural communities. We have distributed this to every member of the legislature, the administration. We've had conversations with folks about it, and we continue to be very active in Sacramento, fighting to see that the key elements of this initiative are implemented. And we were quite pleased when the governor's emergency proclamation came out on forest management to find several of the things that we had recommended in his proclamation word for word. But we're going to continue to make that fight in Sacramento. I want to comment that the companies that I represent, as I said, are a part of the land, part of the communities. They embrace the market. They embrace the market. They're going to maintain and open mills in your communities. They'll build mass wood production facilities, and they'll deal with biomass when there is market demand and some assurance of profit. And so we need to make sure that they have the materials that they need in order to survive. These companies are also more than willing to collaborate and have partnerships with various communities. And please reach out to me, reach out to our association if you have any trouble connecting with any of these companies in your communities. Most simply put, the California Forestry Association wants healthy forests in California. We want to reduce the risk of fire. We want to make our communities safe. We want to make sure that there's good economic health in our communities. The environment and the economy are not enemies. And we also want to make sure that you are successful in doing what you need to do to build economic development in your communities, and we want to be your partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. That was really informative. Are there any questions for Rich before? I know he has to leave at noon today. Okay, go ahead.
So the question is that building a biomass, bioenergy facility, biofuels facility, these are expensive to do, and what's being done to provide some assistance. Did I paraphrase it correctly? Okay. And biofuels in particular. So one of the things that we are working on at the moment is trying to deal with this legislative conference committee, because the conference committee is looking at how to potentially reduce some of the liability that the utility companies have when fires get started. We believe actually very affirmatively that if you're going to do anything to reduce the liability of the utility companies, you have to increase their responsibility for healthy forests. And we believe that one of the ways to do that is to require the utility companies to help invest in some of these new technologies and to develop long-term commitments and agreements for procurement of material. So we're hopeful that there will be some funding available as we talk with the governor's office about these issues that will be able to augment and enhance some of this. The key thing, I think, is really, in many ways, is going to be the issue of procurement of the energy that's created. Because the companies that I represent will build some of these facilities if they know that long-term there's a procurement, that they've got some long-term commitments, then they can make some investments. But these things are expensive and probably can't really be done at the moment without some kind of subsidy or support or grant funding. We like to continually point out that, that wind and solar have been subsidized for years. And if you're going to make an investment in fire reduction and in forest health, you can make that investment by making sure that biomass, biofuels, and bioenergy has the same kind of subsidy that wind and solar have always had.
Yeah, you had made a comment about working with private property owners to make their forests fire-proof. I think a better way to say that is to make their forest fire resilient, because fire is part of our ecology here. We see it as a bad thing right now in Mariposa County because it's burning towards homes, but the Ferguson fire has taken care of a very large area of tree mortality, and that is the natural way to deal with tree mortality. So I think fire resilient is a better word than fireproof.
I apologize for using the wrong word, and you're absolutely correct. Fire has been a natural part of the phenomenon here forever. In fact, before the Europeans came, the native peoples actually set fire. And that's what we're going to start to do more of as we look at prescribed burning.
Well, and the thing is that fire creates a bitter force, because the stronger the species survive.
Right.
Randy Henville over here. I appreciate what you said, and I appreciate CalForest and the advocacy they do. Tree mortality the task force that the governor put together has had limited success. Success, I want to emphasize, they have had success. But they've had limited success in exactly the areas you've been talking about on the biomass area, and largely because in spite of the direct orders in a governor's executive order, EPA, CPUC, and CARB have not played in the game. And if the governor has any hope of being successful with his new Healthy Forest Task Force, those people got to play in the game. How do we do that?
Well, Randy, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, they are a huge part of the challenge. And I think the governor, has got 5 months left in his term. And we're going to have to do everything we can to push on him and his folks to try to get something more out of these other agencies.
Well, and that is the next problem, is how do you gain momentum that'll last through a change of administration?
Absolutely.
The change, and I think it's incumbent upon all the people in this room who believe in rural economic development, and this is one aspect of it that we can use to push on whoever the new administration is to do this, and the new legislature. And like you said, there are certain members of the legislature who've never been here and don't care.
Yeah, we one of the things we do at the California Forestry Association is we do tours for members of the legislature. We bring them out to the forests, and usually on our annual tours we get 5 or 6 members of the legislature to come. This year, for the tour we did in May in Mount Shasta, 21 members of the legislature came. We're doing a tour in August up to the Redwood country, Humboldt and Eureka area. We could only handle 8 people. We have 9 signed up. We're going to take the 9th. We're going to get them there. And interestingly enough, Randy, one of the folks who went on a tour last year is a woman by the name of Autumn Burke. She's a member of the State Assembly. Autumn is an African-American woman who lives in South Central Los Angeles. And after coming to one of our tours last year, this year, she is chairing the caucus on biomass and bioenergy. She is trying to figure out how to make that work. So when we can build those relationships, build those bridges back to the folks in the urban communities who've got the votes and the power, we can maybe make something happen. It's our only hope in some ways. Probably have time for 2 more questions, so we can move on.
I would like to know what can be done about our California legislature and our governor's office about how the money in California is spent. I really resent them piping our water away from where it begins in an expensive tunnel system. I also feel badly that he wants to spend money on a fast rail down to LA. And in the meantime, he's letting our state burn down. And I do not appreciate it, and I am very upset about it. And I don't understand where all the so-called environmentalists are that would normally be wanting to save a lizard. All those lizards, do you know how many there are that have been roasted?
Thank you for your comment. One more in the back of the room, I think.
Ron, thank you. Mike Oliveira, Calaveras County Supervisor. A member of the task force on the Governor's Task Force on Tree Mortality, along with other supervisors here from Alpine County, Tuolumne County, Amador County, one of the 14 high-risk counties in the tree mortality area. Having served on that committee for the last 3 years when its inception, the new formulation of the Forestry Management and Health, seating 33 agencies at the table, has removed our ability as to speak as a voice, as the elected voice of our communities. We reverted back at the direction of the committee to a work group. I'm not uncomfortable with that. I think that's misjustice. We should have, as a member of this community and a victim of the tree mortality program and forest fires, we should have a seat at that table. Your thoughts on that?
Couldn't agree more. It's also interesting to note that industry is not at that table either. It's essentially state agencies. As a trade association, we are advocating for a reformation to make sure that local communities and industry are represented fully on that task force, and not just in the working groups. So we're happy to talk to you about that further and how we can work together on that. So Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. We appreciate you coming and talking about the forest. We have this huge asset in our backyard, and we treat it like a liability, and it can be a leverage for not just economic growth, but the health and quality of life for all of us. So thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. Okay, the next speaker, I'm going to read again what I was given. So Barbara Hayes was born at a young age. No. What else? We'll move forward. All right. Barbara Hayes serves as the Chief Economic Development Officer for the Rural County Representatives of California, RCRC, with nearly 30 years of economic development experience at both the state and regional level. Barbara leads the organization's economic development efforts with a specific focus on developing programs that drive economic opportunity to the organization's 35 member counties. Barbara most recently served as president and CEO of Strategic Excellence, LLC, a consulting firm providing professional expertise in the areas of economic development management, strategic planning, and governance to organizations, local governments, and professionals. She also served as president and CEO of the Sacramento Area Commerce and Trade Association for 14 years. During her tenure, more than 200 companies located and expanded in the greater Sacramento area, resulting in the creation of more than 45,000 direct jobs and multiple billions in capital investment. Barbara received her degree in international relations and economics from University of California, Davis, and currently serves as chair of the Community Advisory Board at Sutter Hospital's Women and Children's Center in Sacramento. Please welcome Barbara Hayes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm acutely aware that I'm all that stands between you guys and lunch, so I'm going to be quick. Quick on not only for that reason, but also because I've only been on the job 6 weeks. So my level of knowledge is an inch deep and a mile wide. But that said, I want to give you a little bit of background about what we've been doing in those 6 weeks. And by the way, I just leaned over to Gerbax and said, we need to take that 30-year reference out of my bio. It does nothing but make me feel old. But truth is, I did start very young. I started in economic development when I was in college, when I was at UC Davis. I was going to be an accountant. And thankfully, my accounting TA, who also happened to be dating a roommate in a large house that I lived in, came over one day and we were talking about accounting and coursework and homework. And she said, hey, there's this internship that's available with the Department of Commerce. Now, that'll take you back when the state had a Department of Commerce. And she said, would you be interested? And I said, sure, because it was paid. So I said, sure. And about 6 weeks into that internship, I thought, why in the world, no offense to the accountants in the room, but why in the world would I want to be an accountant when I can do this? Which was going out and meeting with banks and CPAs and identifying small businesses that were eligible for government financing programs, SBA programs or Community Development Block Grant, ED set-aside programs. We would identify those companies, identify the program, write their proposal, get it approved, and get the money out the door. And we talk about this wonderful facility that USDA funded. The first project that I did was a CDBG loan to Grand Lebacan Ski Resort at Tahoe so that they could expand and do a conference center. So there's nothing like literally in the economic development world seeing the fruits of your labor and knowing that you had a very small part that created jobs and investment for a community. It's that circle that Gerbax touched on first thing. So my heart is in economic development. It is 30 years strong in the field. I've done small business finance, as I mentioned. I've done business attraction and recruitment, business development. I've done everything except that slice that is innovation and entrepreneurship. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say I don't have expertise in that field, although those people I admire more than anybody because they're just the pioneers and make such a difference. But that said, I sat down 2 months ago to have a conversation with Greg Norton, who's the president and CEO of RCRC. And about 45 minutes into that conversation, I said, wait. I thought I was talking about some consulting work that I could help him with through my consulting agency. And I said, wait, are you talking about a full-time position? And he said, yes, when can you start? The board has made this a priority. We've been doing dabbling here and there in economic development, but we need to pull it all together and really put some oomph behind it because our 35 member counties, many of whom are represented by RCRC board members here in this room today, past and present, because our 35 member counties need this help and deserve it. So in the 6 weeks that I've been on board, I've done a lot of observing. I've done a ton of reading. I've sat in meetings, which for the first time in about 20 plus years, I wasn't the person with the most knowledge in the room, which is an odd feeling. But what we've done is we've pulled together an agenda and kind of mobilized staff around what I'm going to just kind of give you an overview, which is 3 foundational elements of economic development where we're going to provide support and assistance to our member counties, and then 3 industry-specific areas where we're going to provide support. And the foundational are very simple. They're basic economic development, but again, where we can do what's been mentioned here in this room today, which is work together to leverage assets and resources. So first and foremost, economic development is a team sport played on a regional field. And that's been said here this morning by a number of our speakers, but it's very true. And you guys are lucky in the sense that you've got a team on the ground that realizes that and has mobilized and continues to mobilize themselves and their resources to enter I'm trying to think of the sports analogy carried out, but to field the team in a way that they can be successful for the 5 counties here that you all represent. So the 3 foundational elements that RCRC is going to lean into, again, to support our member counties in their economic development initiatives is around resource development, business development, and workforce development. So I'll just touch really quickly on each of those. On resource development, one of the things we're doing right out of the chute, and this predates my arrival, is we're pulling together economic development profiles for each of our member counties, just laden with information that will become a tool for all of you in this room on a county-by-county basis. So those are about 50 pages each. I mean, it's just laden with information. We should have those ready by the end of August. Another economic development district funded by EDA, the Chico Economic Development Center, University Center, is doing that research work for us and putting them together. There's going to be 2 pieces. There's that 50-page one done on a county-by-county basis, but there's also going to be a single sheeter that can be used by all of you, quite literally, that's up for marketing purposes. So you can take it to meetings with companies when you're out trying to talk to them about your county and the assets that it has here. You can take them to trade fairs and industry conferences. You can share them with your neighbors, because everybody that knows what's going on in your county, those are your best salespeople. So you can arm them with information and snippets that they can spout off to visitors who are here wine tasting who might want to move their company here. So resource development includes things like that. Workforce development involves bringing together and working with the local partners, but bringing together federal, state, and local workforce development resources, programs, expertise, so that we can lean in to develop that workforce. As Gerbach said, it is, after the initial capital investment, ongoing labor costs are the largest investment that a company makes. So workforce is primary in the economic development realm. You have to have the workers on the ground. Not only do you have to be able to hire them and retain them, but you have to be able to create a quality of life, which is the second piece, that enables those companies to recruit key talent into your area too. So that's a little side discussion. Under the business development piece, one of the things that we're looking at doing, and Select USA was mentioned today, I think, by Director Van. Select USA, we're looking at joining other national industry associations and economic development organizations where site selection consultants and corporate real estate directors assemble, so that we can identify prospects that are interested in locating companies, either expanding or locating companies into rural California. And what we're going to do is at RCRC, we will be the members of those organizations. We'll bring our local partners with us, our economic development team in the field with us, to the extent that they're able to go or have an interest in going. And by able to go, I mean their calendar is cleared. RCRC will support the effort. But even if they aren't there, we're going to push those leads out to our team in the field. Those are the economic development directors that represent each of the counties in the 35-member area. So basic economic development assistance and support, that's kind of what we've deemed the economic development foundation that RCRC is going to lean into. On the industry-specific side, again, I mentioned we're focused on 3 industry sectors or industry-specific economic development. And this is where my level of knowledge is an inch deep and a mile wide. You all know more about this than I do in the room, especially Mr. Gordon, who just spoke so eloquently about forest health and forest resiliency. One of our industry areas, well, I'll tell you all, and then I'll touch briefly on each. So forest resiliency, broadband, getting broadband out to rural California, and the third is infrastructure. So forest resiliency, I'll tell you, we're working on many fronts, but the most promising is one, RCRC is in conversations with private investors and public agencies and have identified commercial products that could be made out of the dead and dying trees in the forests of California. They will take those trees, fire up the lumber mills, repurpose them. We'll have to lean in with workforce development because we're going to have to hire a lot of people. And they will create a product that will be exported out of California. So it's a win-win-win-win if we can pull it off. So everybody in here, just fingers crossed. Work is being done behind the scenes, but we're working with the state legislature, we're working with federal agencies, we're working with the RCRC board members, and hopefully we'll be to a point where we can bring everybody in on it, get to a point where there's a there. Right now it's just a lot of very promising conversations, but big impact on the upside if we can make it happen. On broadband, we're working again with private investors who, when coupled with public funding opportunities, make broadband deployment to rural California seemingly on paper seem like, okay, we can get this done. It hasn't been done yet, so that should tell you all it's not an easy lift. But it's something that I know the RCRC board and the leadership at RCRC is wholly committed to. And that's something else we're working very hard on behind the scenes. The third piece that we're doing, and we're limiting it to 3 only because these are huge, as you can tell, and we want to have some wins. So we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. But the third piece is what we're calling infrastructure. And this is how it's been described to me, is we've, again, predates my arrival. RCRC went out and asked all of our member counties to submit infrastructure projects that they had on the books. So around transportation, water, economic development services. Director Van, I'm looking at you. Do you remember community facilities? And there's one more. Broadband. That's it. Yes. So there's background I didn't know. There we go. So when I started, they gave me these spreadsheets that are this wide and this long with identified projects that came back from our member counties. What we're doing now is looking at financing options that include, again, public and private sector partners. I don't know if you all have heard of, well, I'm going to digress for just a moment, the Opportunity Zone program that's being developed right now through the U.S. Treasury, and there are opportunity zones designated across the state that provide some capital gains tax benefits to private sector investors if they invest in those areas. So we're looking at opportunity zone investment as an opportunity, but other private sector investors too, because it can't all be done with public money. We can't afford it. So RCRC brings that expertise and those connections on the private side as well. We're looking also at bundling those projects together across our multi-counties in subject matters, by water, by broadband, by transportation, bringing in public money, bringing in private money, and then using possibly a financial program that is affiliated with RCRC. And here I'm getting into waters I'm not that familiar with, and I'm doing so in front of a room full of directors of RCRC. But an affiliate organization to RCRC is the Golden State Finance Authority, which has the ability to finance projects, whether it's housing projects or infrastructure projects. So that might be a tool that we bring in as well. Again, all of this is done to write down costs, make it more affordable to get the infrastructure projects done that serve as the basis of an economic development slate for rural California. So, what time is it? Okay, I'm going to tee it up for Randy, my colleague, my longtime colleague, Randy Starbuck, who's going to do the facilitation of the strategic planning after lunch. But for the next 5 minutes, we're going to do a little Q&A here. You guys are going to give me some answers. It's a little bit of an education for me, so it's quite honestly, it's selfish, but I also want to get your brains going a little bit. So if I'm a company I represent a company, a manufacturing company, sitting in, say, Kansas City, and I need to put an operation in California, say in the foothills of California. Can you tell me, just shout, you can shout them out, what are some of the assets that this area offers a manufacturing company? And it can be any, I mean, it can be one that fits in beautifully. Don't make it hard on yourselves. But what are some of the assets, if you're marketing this area? What are some of the pluses that this area offers a manufacturing company? Yes. Recreation for the employees, quality of life, important. He got yours? Yeah, there was a hand back there. Yes. Entertainment and talent? Oh, hospitality, yes. Foreigner's going to be here Friday night. Come on. Yes. Yes. So affordable point of entry, cost of entry. Clean air. Amen. We didn't even get into that with the forests. Yeah. Except for when there are big fires, but yeah. Clean air, clean water, good living, yeah. Fiber optic infrastructure. I like you. I like the positive thought process. Yes. There we go. There's an economic development professional. Access to markets. One-day shipping, access to markets. Anybody else? Right. Workforce training, recruitment training, on-the-job training, ongoing training. Hi, Michelle. Good schools. Okay. Can I flip it? Not to end on a negative, because we're in economic development. We're perpetual marketers, right? So I'm going to say, what are the downsides? If I'm sitting in Kansas looking at coming into California, what would be the impediments? Regulation. At the state? Where? State level? Okay. Okay. Transportation, in what regard is a negative? Shipping. From here over to Port of Oakland, Long Beach. Okay. So transportation infrastructure, goods movement. Yeah. It's not flat? Oh, difficult to build. But I like it. He said it's beautiful. So, and I can tell you, I grew up where it looked like this, and now I live in the Central Valley. It's flat. It's flat. Yeah. This is gorgeous. Okay. Workforce, expand upon that. So ability to recruit. You would have to recruit folks in because they aren't here. Key talent, yeah, and housing. Okay. Anything else? Yeah? Taxes. So it's that cost of doing business. So I will tell you, did anybody see there was an article in the Wall Street Journal on Monday, and not that I'm perusing the Wall Street Journal, somebody sent it to me, but there was an article in the Wall Street Journal on Monday about a California company that was considering a move to Kansas, and they decided not to because after they did all the analysis, it was less expensive for them to remain here because of the training and recruitment costs of the key talent that they needed. So relative to talent, you might think that you don't have it here, but I'll tell you, if a company landed here, given your quality of life, it's all about selling it. You'll get people here. You bring people back from the valley. In fact, I had a meeting in Amador County, and I'm looking for the gentleman who, yes, I had a meeting in Amador County with this gentleman who's a supervisor, and there was one other supervisor there, and then the county executive, and I think you were all homegrown, went away, and came back to your counties, you moved here. Well, you moved, but they came back. Yeah. Smart people. Anyway, so that workforce shouldn't be an insurmountable piece. The other thing I will tell you is education is a big piece in economic development. And as you're talking this afternoon, make sure you include your educational infrastructure. So not only K-12, because there are dollars, as you know, your robust workforce entity here, there are dollars that can be used to reach down into the K-12 system to do job training. But more importantly, let's get some community college involvement. And even I would say, I'm not sure how far away UC Merced is, but I would even claim do the big hug and pull UC Merced in as far as an asset. Any of the CSUs that are nearby. But education's a big asset as well. Nothing that you mentioned as being an impediment is insurmountable. None of that scares me, and it shouldn't worry any of you. There are solutions to all of it. And the fact is, and this goes back over my 30 years of economic development, all done in California, our last name being the state of California, Amador, California, Tuolumne, California, our last name is as big an asset as it is an impediment. Companies come here, they locate here, they grow here, they stay. Yeah, some move away, but there are definite pluses to the state of California, and let's not forget that we're a part of it. So, thank you, everyone. And I think, look at that. Nice job, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Barbara. So I coached the presenters today to not just bring a PowerPoint and slide whip us to death, and we appreciate that you didn't do that. And they all came prepared to talk about their agencies or their organizations, but also understand how to tailor the message to us. And I think they did a great job. Can we just congratulate all the speakers today? Thank you very much.